Okay, my name is Taylor, and I am refuting Ryan Rama's speech. His main claim is that the current ongoing problem in football is going to negatively affect the sport's popularity. The subtopics that he used to support his claim, one, were that concussions are extremely hard to prevent while playing football. Two, the long-term effects of concussions are not worth playing football. And three, with more information linked with football and concussions, parents are becoming more hesitant in having their child play football. So the claim I'm claiming against him, I say that the ongoing concussion problem in football is not going to be detrimental to the sport's popularity. Because I thought his claim was kind of like a prediction, and I just don't think that's possible with a claim of fact. I say the concussions are preventable while playing football. Ryan states that it is not possible to play football without taking shots to the head, and that every player is at risk to get a concussion. But last January, VICES, which is a foundation committed to creating the most protective equipment and gear for sports teams, created a football helmet to reduce impact forces. It is the culmination of a 3-year, $20 million research project. So I would say that is a resource that high school teams and NFL teams could use to prevent concussions. And he also argues that the implementation of the concussion protocol has done nothing. But the concussion protocol was implemented in 2009, and it has been adjusted over the past 7 years. And according to SBNation.com, the introduction of disciplinary action was put into force, which is a first violation in not following the protocol. A first violation will result in a maximum fine of $150,000, and a club could also potentially lose their draft picks. And they also have more medical staff, that are better equipped and educated on concussions on the sidelines. And Ryan makes a point to state that there have been over 800 concussions in the last 4 seasons alone. But Jeff Miller, the NFL's Senior Vice President of Safety and Health, he stated that league officials were making comments that the increase in concussion rates is due to the increase in neurotrauma specialists on the sideline and concussion spotters in the press box. So the concussions have always been there, we just didn't have the resources to realize that. I said that Ryan made a hasty generalization because he said that everybody is going to get a concussion and they're going to be affected long term when playing football. So I just have some quotes from some football players knowing what I know now, I guess I'd still play because I can live with the shoulder and the back and the knees and things like that. I'd say that was a fair trade-off. And that was John Melander said that. He played for the Patriots and the Broncos, and he retired from a neck and back injury and multiple concussions. Wes Walker, he played for the St. Louis Rams. He returned to the NFL after suffering from concussions. He was asked if he was worried about when stepping back onto the field, considering his concussion history, and he said no, not at all. Not at all. I've been cleared by the doctors and everything else, and obviously I'm not going to try to look for contact and everything like that, but I'm not thinking about it either. I'm out there playing hard and playing the way I need to play to be successful out there. And also, to support my subtopic, new rules and regulations are continuing to be implemented to make this sport worth playing. The crown and the helmet rule was put into effect in 2013 to prevent concussions and helmet-to-helmet contact. But this past football season, it became a point of emphasis, so they're kind of like reiterating it, making it more important. And it was re-implemented, and now it's being taken more seriously. And also, not all concussions are going to have the same effect on every player. Some are minor and some are major, and so it's not worth not getting into the sport or quitting the sport when you don't even know what's going to happen. And then the third one, he said that parents are hesitant in having the children play football. I said that parents are hesitant, but they aren't stopping their kids from participating. According to a study that was conducted by the Physical Activity Council, there has been a 1.9% increase in youth participation in tackle football. And I also said that the rates of concussions in football are not increasing. They just have more information and medical resources to find out about the concussions, which is refuting his claim that he said in high school football is responsible for 60% of concussions. So he was just saying that it's increasing. And he also said that the National Federal State High School Football Association in 2013 released information that high school students participating in football has fallen 10,000 from the previous year. But I found information that a survey that was conducted that the participation in high school football for the 2015 and 2016 school year was the highest rate, and it remained the #1 sport in the nation. And it was at its lowest peak in 1992 and 1993. And the National Center for Educational Statistics concluded that the participation of high school football has remained steady. So, in conclusion, the ongoing concussion problem is not going to be detrimental to the sport's popularity. Thank you.
All right, it started off pretty well structurally, but it got a little bit confusing in the body of the speech because I didn't think that you signposted clearly between the first and the second point. I could tell when you got to the third point that was a little bit more distinctive. Part of the problem is that you were giving kind of a narrative on your argument instead of making declarative statements, and so you want to make sure that you have clearer claims as part of your argument. On the first point, when you talked about the issue concussions and their impact on the game. I like the evidence that you had that suggested that, look, they're making improvements. We've got a protocol that is applied here. It's being changed in the way it's being applied as we learn more about this. And then the argument that says we haven't really had an increase in the number of concussions, we've just had an increase in the number of ways in which concussions could be discovered because we have people on the sidelines or people who are watching for all those things that we didn't have in the past. So the number about the increased number of concussions, despite the fact that the protocols have been put in, I think you need to kind of explain that the impact here is that you can't reach the conclusion that the advocate's talking about, that despite the improvements, we're still having more concussions. That's not something that I think you can reach the conclusion on. That's what you want to be saying on that particular point. The next point you present suggests that there continue to be the athletes continue to be seeing this as being worthwhile. You've got a couple of examples of athletes who said that they would continue to play or they weren't worried about it. That's okay, although I'm not exactly sure that that's super generalizable, and if we have existing athletes, for example, I don't know what the data is on the amount of people who have retired from, let's say, the NFL, what percentage are having some of the severe problems that are being talked about, and what percentage have minor problems, and what have no problem whatsoever. We don't have any data like that from either position in this, and I think that's a little complicated. We're having to rely on anecdotal evidence, and so you present a couple of anecdotes where people weren't particularly harmed. It's hard to make a generalization from that. And then you come back to the new rules and talk about how they're being reemphasized, and I think that that's a good point. I don't know what the advocate's point on this was, but I think that this is a good counterclaim for you. On the last point, I think that you did a good job suggesting that the statistics have been inconsistent. You've got information that says there's been an increase in participation. The advocate had information that suggested there was a decline in participation. Yours basically suggests that it continues to be a #1 sport. It peaked at one point, but people continue to be playing it. I think you could argue, for instance, that whatever evidence the advocate showed doesn't necessarily demonstrate a trend, and that over the 20-year span that you're talking about, because I think you had data from, the peak was 1991 to today, we're still up and down on a regular basis. There are all kinds of reasons that it fluctuates. The idea that it's related to concussions in any way, I think you want to challenge the reasoning on that. There's a big inferential leap there that the causality is that parents are freaked out about their kids getting concussions, and so they're not letting them play anymore. That's an inference that the advocate's making, and I think you've got a good basis for making a challenge on that. All right, thank you.